Dear students, I'm Marien Lüke and I'm doing my PhD in teaching English as a foreign language at the University of Marburg in Germany. Together with David Gerlach, a professor of teaching English as a foreign language at the University of Wuppertal, I planned the content of this lecture focusing on multilingual classrooms. First, we will introduce you to the concept of multilingualism and the development of multilingualism from deficit to benefit. After that, we will focus on multilingual education and explain to you the concept of translanguaging. Finally, we will provide a short summary of the lecture as well as the bibliography and ideas for further reading. We will begin this lecture by explaining the concept of multilingualism. According to Claire Cramsch, multilingualism denotes the ability to use various linguistic repertoires and other semiotic resources to bring one's message across and to make sense of other people's messages across and between languages. While bilingual learners can produce and use two languages proficiently, multilinguals understand and use more than two languages. Although there are various terms for the concept of multilingualism, as well as there are many definitions of multilingualism, multilingualism is commonly seen as a linguistic resource because it raises language learners' awareness of languages and supports language learning in general. Most approaches to multilingualism regard languages as interacting with each other and therefore appreciate the flexible linguistic repertoires of multilingual learners. Since language classrooms are becoming more and more linguistically diverse due to immigration and globalization, it is crucial for language teachers to know how to teach multilingual learners. Although multilingualism is seen as a benefit to language learning, in the past it was rather considered as a deficit, which will be illustrated in the following slide. In the past, multilingualism was rather seen as a handicap because language learners might have had accents and dialects in the languages they speak, so that they could not fulfill specific monolingual norms. So multilinguals were assumed to be less proficient in language learning in comparison to monolingual students who only speak one foreign language proficiently. Besides, people also thought that multilingual students have less capacity for other skills in their brains because their cognitive capacity was used by linguistic knowledge and skills. Fortunately, scholars were able to show that these assumptions were simply a myth and that they could not be proven by research. In contrast, language research was able to show that there is great potential of multilinguals' linguistic repertoires because they were able, for example, to transfer certain language strategies to other languages they use and speak. Therefore, multilinguals are seen as mentally flexible. Multilinguals also show a great language awareness because they know how certain language structures and similarities or differences between languages exist. Along with the growing linguistic diversity and appreciation of multilingualism, language learning focuses less on a native-like competence and more on a communicative competence. To appreciate multilinguals in language education, teachers must acknowledge some principles for teaching multilingual learners, which will be outlined in the following slide. Since multilingualism can be a real asset to language learning in language classrooms, teachers should appreciate and value multilingual learners. Along with multilingual learners, language teachers should recognize and value multilingualism in classrooms and in societies as well. Rather than seeing multilingual students as problematic in language learning, they should respect and appreciate the uniqueness of linguistically and culturally diverse learner biographies. To show appreciation, there must be an inclusive learning environment in which learners actively use the language or the languages they speak to encourage language awareness, transfer of language skills, and to not exclude multilingual learners. As a means for integrating multilingual language learning, the approach of translanguaging will be explained in the following slide. In multilingual language education, translanguaging is a pedagogical strategy that combines two or more languages in one activity systematically. The systematic integration of two or more languages in a language learning activity can encourage learners to spontaneously switch between their languages, the so-called code switching. Translanguaging, however, is only a broad concept which subsumes many different practices, such as activities in which the language input and output is different. In a possible activity, learners could, for instance, read a text in their first language and do a writing activity in their second or third language. By using translanguaging in language classrooms, students become more aware of differences and similarities between languages and therefore become generally more aware of the languages they use. To conclude, we will now summarize the content of this lecture. In the first part, we introduced you to the concept of multilingualism. Overall, multilingualism can be understood as the proficient use of two or more languages. Although multilingualism was rather seen as a deficit in the first place, it is now valued as an asset to language learning. Therefore, multilingual teaching strategies should be integrated in every multilingual language classroom. One possible approach for integrating home languages is translanguaging. We will now show you additional recommendations for further reading and our bibliography. Thank you all for watching this lecture and see you in other lectures in this module.